You're so cute.
We're live and recording.
I know. Did you get Hillary or not?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I should probably not be eating on the camera.
And we're still live. Like, we're live everywhere right now.
That's fine. So is that for me to be quiet? Okay.
We'll see who's getting in.
So on Facebook, is it on, which profile is it on so that I can share it?
It's on mine, the nonprofit page, and Elevation Review, and my author page. So it's everywhere.
Profile is it on so that I can share it?
It's on my nonprofit page and Elevation Review, and my author page. So it's everywhere. Hey everyone who's joining. Hey. I'm gonna get started in just a second. Hey everyone who's joining. Hey. get started in just a second.
So I think people can hear like the delay.
I just turned it off.
Okay.
So if you're on already and you're watching, let me know who you are. Let me know what your name is, what you're doing, what's going on. Let me know that you're here with us. Hey, Hillary.
Hi, Hillary.
Hey, please excuse me as I just have gotten off work and haven't yet settled into the home.
Understandable. Well, you're live. We're here. We're live.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We're live on Facebook, and we're live on Zoom. So here we go. Those of us who are joining in, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining. We're so excited that you have decided to watch our poetry reading today. We're going to go ahead and get started. So, first and foremost, I want to welcome you to the Kneeland Center for Poetry's first poetry reading, titled the Kneeland Writer Series, Poetry on a Journey. I want to give a little background on the Kneeland Center first, really quick. The Kneeland Center for Poetry is a 501c3 literary organization that serves as a haven for empowered, prolific poets by discovering, cultivating, and enhancing the voices and works of all underrepresented poets. I encourage you all to stay in touch with us by visiting www.thekneelandcenter.org and signing up for our newsletter, the first of which will be released in July. You can also visit the Kneeland Center for Poetry on Facebook and Instagram. Next, I want to extend my gratitude to my amazing board of directors, Mr. Cedric Warren, who is not with us on this evening, Ms. Kiana Walker, and Ms. Kimberly Janelle, who will be joining us just a little bit later. I want to thank you guys for putting in the time and the effort to help make the Kneeland Center an organization that will thrive for years and years to come. And so I'm just very grateful for everything you guys have put in so far. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank all of our supporters and donors who have given generously to the Kneeland Center for Poetry. Your donations and your giving and your insight helps us to create more opportunities for the aspiring, undiscovered, and underrepresented poets worldwide. And so just a couple of things that we have going on. We have a poetry workshop that we just finished. And today was the concluding day of the workshop. And now we're here at our live poetry reading. So after the 4th of July, we'll have another poetry workshop for 4 weeks, which will then be concluded with another live poetry reading, featuring the poets who participated in that workshop as well. Also, we have the Elevation Review which is currently accepting submissions. So the Elevation Review is our quarterly poetry journal. Our first issue comes out in August. The theme for this issue is the injustice will return home one day. So if you have submissions that you would like to submit to the Elevation Review for consideration for publication into our journal, please visit the elevationreview.submittable.com. I will also put that in the chat box below once we get started with the poetry reading. So as we go through this reading today, I'm going to give a little layout of what's going to take place. So we'll have our poets read, including myself. And once the poets are done, we will have room for question and answers. If there are any commentary you'd like to give, any feed forward you'd like to give to the poets who are reading, we gladly accept and welcome all positive feedback, all feedback. All right. So I'm going to introduce each poet. And then once I introduce each poet, the first poet that we will hear from will be none other than Miss Hillary Woodall Franks. But first, I'm going to introduce our poets for the evening. Hillary is a rising poet from Mississippi who challenges herself by reaching outside of the box in order to make her poems come to life. In her poems, you'll feel the grace of a butterfly and the fire of a phoenix. Allow her poems to take you to a place where thoughts are just as existent and lively as our own bodies. Our next poet that's going to read is Kiana Walker. Kiana is the founder and CEO of Next Great Architects, LLC, a teaching studio that introduces children to architecture as early as kindergarten and nurtures students through licensure. With over 14 years of experience in architecture, she continues to thrive as a designer and educator. She is also the author of Jamila Pearl, the Architect Girl. Kiana received a bachelor's degree in architecture and a master of architecture degree from Ball State University and the Boston Architectural College, respectively. And in her spare time, she enjoys quality time with family, loved ones, reading, dogs, journaling, decorating, traveling, and listening to music. After that, we will have Ms. Tamara Davidson, unfortunately, who will not be with us this evening. So on her behalf, I will be reading her poem. Tamara is a rising poet from Colorado and has much to tell the world. As she creates the masterpieces of her poems, we learn that there are the voices of the silent that truly scream a truth that the world needs to hear. And then lastly, we'll have Ms. Kimberly Janelle, who is the CEO and owner of Kimberly Janelle Incorporated, the parent company for the KJI Institute for the Arts, which serves as the training ground where young people can champion their skills in acting, dance, modeling, vocal instruction, and more. The newly formed KJI Talent Agency serves as a bridge between the young trained artists and industry-related opportunities. Kimberly is a print and commercial model, playwright, director, singer, and actor. She is currently signed with 4 agencies within the Midwest, with her most recent commercial work being with the Indiana Grand Casino, Skechers, Hoosier Lottery, Indiana University, and Keller & Keller Law Firm. All right, and then we'll have some poems read by me in the midst of everything. My name is Thomas Kneeland. I am the founder and executive director for the Kneeland Center for Poetry. With nearly a decade of creative writing experience, I believe that every person has the ability to create beautifully written poetry and that everyone has a voice as it pertains to writing poetry. I'm a graduate of DePaul University. I majored in creative writing Currently enrolled at Indiana Wesleyan University for a master's degree in ministry. I'm the author of 2 collections of poetry, Shades of Gold and Uncaged, Breathing in Public. A 3rd collection, The Door of Return, is forthcoming. And in my spare time, I love playing piano and drums, cycling on leg day, traveling, reading, and writing poetry, obviously, and singing and spending time with my daughter, Essence, who is 3 and will be 4 soon. So with all that being said, we're going to get right to the poetry reading. So first up, we have Miss Hillary Woodall Franks.
Thank you for that introduction. First, before we get started, let me just say the workshop has been very beneficial to me as an aspiring writer. It's brought more confidence in my writing. So I just wanted to give gratitude for Thomas and what he's doing in the workshop and giving people a chance to voice or get their voices out there. The first poem I would like to read is Black Butterfly. I'm a black butterfly, no question of the wise. A balance of determination and ultimate beauty. As my sun-kissed melanin, it's more great. The lack of vibrancy means nothing. I know they will love me. Pushing away all doubt, the flapping of my wings, allowing the sun to lighten my grand entrance, quicken flutters of nervousness as I decide to take flight. Could I change how they see me? Would they like me? The assurance of what I was to become, the darkness and loneliness I felt. The beginning of this life has been nothing short of sweet. The next poem, The Butterfly Effect. Into a world of purpose, a world of unknowns, a world where hand in hand we join, a world of unknowns, flying past the lanes of depression, removing the blurs of rainbows, flying past the lanes of depression, into a world of where we meet at the crossroads, joining the warriors, both small and large, into a world of purpose. Phoenix Butterflies, the next, and my third poem. The creaking of rolling wheels on broken roads, watching the softness of the ashes disappear, emergence of a warrior in its smallest form, blurring the lines of the greens, browns, and blues, emergence of a warrior in its smallest form, catapulting strength and hope into the earth, remembrance of what was joyous sounds, trailing in the fiery passion of change, remembrance of what joyous sounds, brushed by the essence of a world unknown, shifting the earth with the palms of his hands, hearing the creaking of rolling wheels on broken roads. Thank you.
Thank you. That was amazing. Of course, you know, I absolutely love your word choices and your imagery in the poems. And so I thank you for reading those. Again, as a reminder, guys, at the end, if there are questions, if there are commentaries that you'd like to make, we will have a section specifically for that at the end. All right. Thank you again, Hillary, for reading. Your poems are definitely impactful. It was also a pleasure having you in the workshop. I am looking forward to seeing what other pieces you're going to write in the future, the ones that you're going to publish, and yeah, let's just keep the writing going. The spirit of poetry is alive. Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Cool. Next up, we have Kiana Walker, who will be reading her poems this evening.
Okay, so I'm going to talk slow, or try to talk slow, because when I get nervous or excited, I go pretty fast. This first poem is the first one that I wrote under the Kneeland Center for Poetry, and it's called The Climb. It was actually part of a prompt. It's been such a long journey to the top. The revelation at every elevation proves more at the cloud's crop. How much farther is the climb? Is this an endless ascent? That would be such a waste of time. The one next to me has already peaked. What if I started on the wrong mountain? They are already finished and my envy has leaked. How high am I supposed to go? My limbs are fatigued and energy draining. This wasn't meant to be fair, this I know. While they are resting in their goal, I'm struggling more with each step, counting the cost of retreat on my soul. My perspective shifted when I realized my view. The ones that finished reached their end. I get to keep moving, and my sight is always new. Because hindsight is 20/20, I should have taken the time to enjoy the scene. It's amazing that every level has its own beauty. My focus was only on the work. I missed all the experiences. What folly. I ended my thoughts with a smirk. So the next one is, so this one is also like, I think Thomas has like prompts and challenges all the time. So the next one was also a challenge that I sent. And this one is called My Genesis, and it's about architecture. When art joined math in holy matrimony, in the consummation of that union, they conceived me. Each part of them together fused, I developed inside of art's womb. Her creativity nurtured me and developed my imagination. I became to be. When I was born, I only looked like him. My precision was calculated, my proportions were golden. I was the perfect blend of the two, but only those who knew me saw my mother in me. I am feeling and logic, I am form and function, I am freedom and security. I should introduce myself. I'm architecture, it's me. And the last one is called Broken Goals. And this was the writing workshop that Thomas had the board of directors go through before, we opened it up to everyone else. So again, this is my last one, Broken Goals. There are times when there are times when broken is goals. That glass ceiling, that box they put you in, that emotional abuse, that fear of rejection, that painful cycle. When you finally break, make sure it shatters. Okay, thanks.
Got all the claps right now. Good. All the snaps, all the claps, whatever you want to do. Thank you, Kiana, for reading. I appreciate your poetry. My favorite line out of all of them is counting the cost of retreat on my soul. I think that line is super powerful. Thank you for reading. Well, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to read a couple of poems before I read Tamara's. I'm going to read a couple of poems that I've written, and then I'm also going to read a couple poems from my book, Uncaged, Breathing in Public. So lately, some technical difficulties here. Uh-oh. All right, here we go. Back in business. All right. So recently, as you all know, there have been several unfortunate instances of people of color being treated ridiculously to the point of losing life. And so because of this, or not because of this, but I felt compelled to write a bit of poetry about the injustices that our people are facing right now. And so this poem that I'm about to read is called Breakthrough. This is a poem dedicated to George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Drayshawn Reed. And it's called Breakthrough. When you strangle us, we don't just die. We struggle to breathe for 8 minutes, 46 seconds, followed by our first line break, and then our bodies have to work harder to defend the front line with interrupted enjambments, mixed brain signals, adrenaline and delayed flight responses, and blue-colored bloody hands, and burnt rubber fumes, and singed nostrils, and bleeding nostrils, and cries for our mothers, and cries for our mothers to save us from our hunters. When you kill us, we don't just die. You shoot us without accurate facts. We bleed betrayal and stereotypes, short circuit our stereo systems with slain blood. We die in rounds because you thought that one wasn't enough, and perhaps one would kept us alive. But with 8 or 9 shots, your evaluation likely says exceeded expectation. When you shoot us, we don't just die. We die slowly, and you change the story quickly. Then our families have to work harder to defend honor that we have already earned, serving a country that never welcomed us with life-giving love, but instead snatched us in with death-giving prejudice. And so when we die by your hand, we don't just die. Our skin breaks and everything speeds up before slowing down. After the ground receives our blood, our spirits escape to ancestral refuge before another round, before another knee, before another corrupt officer kills our spirit of hope for a more just society. This next poem I'm going to read is called Where We Stand. A few months ago, I had a dream. It's going to sound ironic, but I had a dream that I was running with Martin Luther King Jr. And so in this dream, a ton of stuff went on. And so I'm going to read this poem, Where We Stand, and then I'm going to read another poem called Dream Runner that tells a little bit more in detail on what actually happened in the dream. Where We Stand. If Martin was my running mate, he'd tell me to prepare a large plate and eat it all in one sitting. There won't be much time for seconds. We're running out of time. He'd tell me to gather my people and not sit idly by while the injustices of the world consume our brothers and our sisters. We're running out of time. He'd tell me that power is not just in our physical presence. The power rests in what we write, and because not enough of us are listening, that means we're all reading something. Dream Runner. When I exited the apartment building, he was outside waiting on me. Golden yellow hoodie, black joggers. I felt the warmth of love and pain radiating from where his wound was, and he looked me in the face. I've been to the mountaintop, so let's see if you can make it there too. At 7:05, we ran into the evening towards the mountain where Moses stood, peering into a promised land that was no longer promised. We saw a land where sons and daughters were killed and taken from enraged mothers and weeping fathers. I asked him, Why must people treat people so mean? He didn't answer. But he grabbed my shoulder, and I turned to see him bleeding from the side of his face. And he said, "Son, I've been to the mountaintop. I've marched the streets of race and have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. But you haven't seen his glory yet. You have time to win this race and help eradicate the evils of injustice. I need you to keep running." He had a dream. I dreamt with Martin. Therefore, the dream is alive in me. He ran beside me. Black joggers. I'm going to read one more. It's called Unjust Perspectives. This poem is for Ahmaud Arbery. If you've seen any of my other live videos, you've seen me read this poem before. If not, you're new to this poem. Unjust Perspectives. Take a sip of water here. All right. I'm sure he thought he'd never have to fight for peace. I'm sure he thought he'd never have to die for peace. And if there's one thing I've learned about having big dreams, it's that even for a moment, the trade-off is an unusually long sleep. And so he's asleep now, dreaming among the martyred souls who showed us how important it is to love our own. And he can't come back now until enough of us have paid for peace with skin and bullet bloodstained shirts for running miles down the street. Their perspectives didn't see an intelligent Black man. Their perspectives only saw what hatred created. Their perspectives didn't see Black boy gold. Their perspectives saw a colored nigga cold. Cold-blooded murder on a Georgia street after running 2 miles to his freedom beat. Unlike Icarus, who lost waxing wings when he flew too close to the sun, my brother gained busted cap and wings the closer he ran to the sun. And the father was pleased with what the son had done. And the father was pleased with what the son had done. And the father was pleased with what the son had done. And when they were finally charged, a mother still wept for her son. The world in which we live has a murderous rhyme. Kill this nigga, kill that nigga, and then we'll all be fine. But it's time to shift our perspective, because if we don't, there'll be no more we left. And then we will all be gone. Thank you. Our next poet that I'm going to read for is Tamara Davidson. Tamara was another participant, or is another participant, in our workshop. This poem is called The Soul of a Cat. I am a cat. I comment on nothing. I observe everything. I don't care what you think of me, but I know I am the mirror to your conscience. I judge you, and deep inside, you know I speak the truth with my silence. Those who hate me, I understand. You're not ready for the truth. I can read your mind. My heart weeps when you're sad. I am comfortable in my body. My authenticity is absolute. I take ownership of my surroundings. I am unapologetically who I am. I move with purpose. I will not be contained. I only live in the present moment. I am awake. But when I sleep, I travel down a rabbit's hole and make friends with the outcasts who dwell there. They are my friends because they can't judge me. They are misfits too. If you hear me purr, it is a gift, a glimpse to the sound of a vibrating universe. I dare you to look into my eyes because then you will know the truth about everything. I am an old wandering soul, still curious despite my enigmatic sojourns. Brief but significant is the life of a cat. This next poem is called Truth Seeker, and this is an after poem after the poet Khalil Gibran. I seek myself, but my soul is lost. I linger in the darkness with words that flow, but they belong to a ghostly presence. I go within from deep despair, but I know I am not alone. I greet the stranger who lurks in my darkness, but it says nothing and waits for my answer. I say, I have no truth to tell, but my words don't convince it. I sought a truth once thought outside me, but now I see deep inside my words set my truth free. This next poem I'm going to read is called My Voice. Here we go again. Division disrupts our human sides. Anger spills out of hearts and minds. A majority has no regard for the other. Our voices, they cannot appertain. A change will come, but not in vain. Why in a tree am I a silent bird? I scream and I cry on deafened ears. If I am to fly with a voice and heart of purity, then give me a song that will lift me to ears aware. My voice they will hear. Change will come, the purpose of my life. This last poem I'll read for Tamara is called What I Keep Sacred. At dusk, I see purpose in clouds of disarray. The wind comforts on a hot day. The breeze makes wild the restless leaves. I sit in trust to what's yet to come, for I am a puppet to life's great plan. At dusk, I think, a kind heart of my own, a kind heart of another, a kind heart of a critter, a kind heart of a creator. As night falls, I think, to keep me safe from myself, to keep me safe from a stranger, to keep me safe from a death I can't control, to keep me safe from a judgment of life lived wild. An afterlife I won't fear. It was I who chose this life, a life I lived boldly, but did not live perfectly. My life I kept sacred. I lived it sincerely. My life I kept sacred. Sacred I kept my life. Thank you. And so now I will read what Tamara had to say about her experience with the workshop class. Tamara had this to say. This workshop opened my eyes to what poetry could be and my own potential. I became brave with the help of this class, and now I am no longer afraid to reveal to the world who I am through poetry. And that's kind of the goal of the Kneeland Center for Poetry. We want to not only discover those voices, but cultivate them, enhance them, so that, like Tamara, they're no longer afraid to reveal who they are to the world through what they write. And so the participants of this workshop, they've all been amazing. They had so much insight to share, many different experiences to share, and they did their best work in these 4 weeks of the workshop. And so to end us off, I am going to write. I don't think Kimberly is able to be with us this evening. I'm going to read a couple of poems from Uncaged Breathing in Public. And after I read a couple of poems from this book, I then am going to have a poem read by one of our board of directors, Kiana Walker. So first I'm going to read a couple of poems, then we'll have that poem read by Kiana. And then we'll open up the chat for any questions, any comments, any feedback. Does that sound good? Sounds good. Give me a thumbs up wherever you are in your chat. All right. Cedric, I see you. Mark, I see you. Thanks for joining us. Tremone, thanks for joining us. Mama Pam, thank you for clapping your hands. I see those hands. Simone, I see you. Cedric, I see you. All right. All right, this poem I'm going to read is called Casualty. Some boys grow up thinking they have to be men at such young ages that they miss out on emotional development. I should not have to shed tears because I slap my boy across the face when he comes home with his pants around his ankles. I should not have to shed tears when he leaves for school every morning, in fear that he'll be a casualty in a senseless war. Let me remind you, we are in a war zone. Tell me how I should feel when they give my son a gun and he runs with it. You tell me not to worry. The cops drive fast and have good enough aim to shoot the gun away. Wrong answer. Number 2375, he missed the target, caught the hair on the black boy's golden chin, and ruptured his skin from the outside in. Let me remind you, we are in a war zone. Casualty. This next poem I'm going to read has a really long name. Floxinosin hilipilification. That word means, in the simplest of terms, the things that we tend to ignore or not pay much attention to. Here it is. 1. We walk past the curbside drummer, drive past the peddler, ignore the stranger who walks beside us and doesn't plan to be here tomorrow. Avert our gazes from the woman crying in her car. Look past the cuts on his arm, her arm. We call it art. They call it hurt. 2. Birch drumsticks beat across a white tub. Coins plink to the bottom of his velvet hat, blackened from having been scraped across dirty downtown curbsides for 5 years after being discharged from the military. 3. Although the tattered clothes look questionable, I can't help but give. What if the peddler you ignored was an angel? You've missed the blessing in disguise. 4. He wants to take a bath and drop his iron in the tub. She wants to cheat because he cannot seem to convince himself that he's enough. They're sad. They have no one. 5. She doesn't need your words or your touch, but you looked at her and just turned away. So turn around, throw a thumbs up. She'll love that. 6. We call it art. They call it hurt. It's the only way that pain and sorrow leaves the body. You can show them otherwise. Breathe when you speak. It lets them know you're alive. The last poem I'm going to read is called Unlearned. A dream is your will caged within the confines of your mind. The will, however, picks away at the lock each time you awaken from the dream. So how many times, then, will you dream before you finally pick the lock that holds your biggest aspirations? Thank you. On behalf of our board member, Kimberly Janelle, we're going to have a poem read by Kiana Walker.
So, like many of the other poems, this was also written from a prompt. I found my voice in a dumpster. I had never been there before, but something deep within led me there. I couldn't figure out where I was going. I didn't really know what I was looking for, but I listened. And my spirit said this way. When I got to the lot where the dumpster sat, spirit said, in there. I thought, maybe I left something in a box, mistaking it for filing. I looked inside and didn't see anything I recognized. Spirit said, get in and dig deep. I hesitated because there was a trash in there. It smelled of pissy dreams and wet moldy rainbows. I stepped in and saw my best friend. The one I threw away because other people shamed her for her mistakes. So I did too. Spirit said, deeper. I shifted some things around and saw a picture of a girl. As I looked closer, I recognized it was me, 10-year-old me. The picture was glued on top of a box. Spirit said, open it. I was afraid, but Spirit said, I am with you. Open it. I opened the box to find my hopes and dreams and truths and declarations in a journal at the bottom of the box. I remembered this journal. I remembered where I was when I got this journal, how proud I was. I remembered how much I treasured it. I remember how much I treasured this journal until I turned to the last page of the journal and read, he touched me and she didn't believe me. And that was when I remembered the day I lost my voice.
Thank you, Keon, for reading. That last line is serious, isn't it? And that was the day. And that was the day I discovered that I lost my voice. Super, super impactful poem. So this is like all of our reading that we're gonna do for this evening. And now we're gonna open up the floor for any comments, any feedback, any questions. I'm gonna be checking the chat just to see if there are any questions or comments that have been made that you would like to make known. So let's have at it. And then I'll also be asking a couple of questions as well to our authors on today, to our poets on today. So let's see what we've got here. We got tons of comments, tons of them. It appears that that we have a lot of positive feedback for the readings. So I'm going to just ask a couple of questions, and I'm going to start with you, Hillary. Yeah, I'm going to pick on you. So my first question to you is, you know, what was your motivation behind writing the poems that you wrote? What made you come to the decisions on the words you chose, the images you chose to, you know, show the readers?
So, main inspiration is one, I am a vivid dreamer. So I'm very hands-on, a very visual person. So when I write, I like to not only just put out a story, but I want you to see that story, feel it. I want you to be a part of it. So that's the main inspiration is getting the visual, being able to put a person in that time, in that moment, in that space without them actually physically being there. And then the second one was during the very first poetry workshop that we had to turn in. I was like, okay, so what can I write about? I wanted to do something different. I wanted to step outside the box. So the very first thing that popped in my head was, a butterfly, because I have a tattoo of a butterfly. My sister has one. It's just what butterflies represent all together. So with that, that's the main inspiration. Just always seeing butterflies, I always wonder, what's their purpose? When you see things, you see different objects, you always wonder, what's the purpose? Why was this particular thing created? And the very first thing for me was butterflies. And when you get into the poems and the imagery, you start looking into, okay, what does the butterfly represent? As we all know, butterflies, they fly high, they travel. And I'm a big person on traveling. They travel, but where do they travel to? What are they thinking? How do they feel when they're in a specific moment in that specific space? So with Black Butterfly, that represented what's going on today, what's going on in young men and women that live in the South, how we feel. Just putting up her, a metaphor or personification to the butterfly as far as a human being. When you get into the butterfly effect, that actually spoke more into tying everything together. How do I feel in this moment where we're living in a world that seems so chaotic? this year has been chaotic. So what's a positive message that a butterfly can represent without actually saying? And then when you get into Phoenix Butterfly, seeing my son on a specific day walk out of a house that burned down in our neighborhood, just that imagery within itself, he's never been to that specific place, but to see him come out of that represent, to me, that seeing that imagery, it represented our children in this time. Our kids in this time right now, they're coming out of the ashes. They're going to experience something that they're going to be able to tell their children and grandchildren. So it's a time that really just changed everything in who we are and even our kids and the impact that we wanted to make. So that was the inspiration behind those poems read today.
Absolutely. And so I want to kind of like just go into a couple of lines that you wrote. Not so much the first one, but definitely, like, I remember our first workshop, you wrote about the black butterfly, and then our second one, you, if I can grab it here. In our second workshop, you talked about the, you had a continuation of the black butterfly, but you also did an after poem after Nikki Giovanni's A Journey. And so let's talk about that, like how your poem about the black butterfly kind of like created those next moments for that journey that the butterfly is taking. Because you said, we know that what butterflies are known for, they're known for traveling, they're known for, going long distances and flying high, but where are they actually going, right? And so in your poem for the second workshop, you talked about a journey, a new day, a day of difference, flying through the sky to larger heights, flying with your fellow bird friends, right? So let's talk about that journey that the butterfly is now taking. And then we've got that one image at the end of the boy collecting the last of the earth beings, right? So let's talk about that butterfly's journey, right? And then how that image, how the butterfly's journey is now pinpointing a moment where this boy is picking up the last of the earth beings. So I would love to hear your thoughts on what you would.
So with that poem, A Journey Survived. It is typed, well, it was a copycat poem for the second workshop that we did. One, I'm a big fan of Nikki Giovanni and African American poets. So I've been following her since I was maybe in high school, just her work in general. So with picking that particular poem, I wanted to pinpoint my actual surroundings, being that I'm from Jackson, Mississippi. People think dirt roads, trees, woods. They think the worst of the worst. And so when you're doing the continuation of the butterfly, you notice at the start of a day, you may see that butterfly flying, but where is the butterfly going? And in that particular poem, I just took the imagery in my neighborhood, and it seemed like everything had a meaning, especially when you get into the stillness in the air, the orchestra of midnight crickets, the brokenness of the pine trees, my view of the aftermath shown in cracked streets, the soulful tunes of my flying friends, the cloudiness of the reddish-brown skies, hopelessness of humanity as the lonely child collects the last of the earth beings. When we talked about that, Thomas, you thought it was humans. It had nothing to do with humans. This imagery really just came from a morning walk me and my son do before going to work. And on this particular day, he chose to ride his bike, which was different. And in the midst of watching him ride that bike, he also went forth with collecting rocks. And he normally do not do that, but it's just after looking at my neighborhood in a different light and seeing him do that, it meant something, and I was able to tie that into it, because that particular poem spoke about the aftermath of like a war, of seeing the aftermath of chaos and seeing a child and how they view their own surroundings once they're faced with having to rebuild and restructure their lives once they lost everything. So with that, that really tied so much into a butterfly just really taking in what they see when they're traveling, like the different neighborhoods and how things can blend in. But there's always that one piece, that one thing that sticks out. And that's what I wanted to really show in that journey. I wanted to take a different route and get it from like a bird's eye view of what a butterfly sees, or just kind of get our mind into looking at the world from a bird's eye view versus what's directly in front of us.
Very good, because that leads me into my next question about looking at what's in front of us. So, like when you look at the craft of this poem, even when you look at Nikki's original poem, she uses tons of ellipses, and so for those who are viewing, those who may not know what ellipses can do, we kind of talked about what can be said of those ellipses, you know? And so normally when we're in the middle of a text conversation or, you know, a conversation on our social media platforms, we'll use ellipses after certain words. And so we automatically assume that there is something left unsaid. And so my question to you, Hillary, is like, do you think that there is anything to be said about the ellipses that you use in your poem? For example, the poem starts off and it says, "A new day, ellipses, a day of difference, ellipses. I flew through the sky, ellipses, to larger heights, ellipses, flying with my fellow bird friends." You know? And so I question, like, what's in between a new day and a day of difference? What's in between a day of difference and flying through the sky? Like, what extra details, if any, are in there? And do you think that there are any things that the speaker might have left unsaid?
So with the ellipses, at first I was like, with doing the copycat poem for the workshop, when I realized, I was like, I may have been off a little bit more than I could chew, but it was a challenge that I was up for. And with writing and forming my poem in the same structure as hers, I noticed with each line that was written, I took a moment to pause and really think about what's the message I was trying to convey. What does the next line mean to the line before it? How does it all tie in together? So really for me, as I was writing that, it really was a moment, just taking a moment to pause and think about what's the message I'm trying to convey, especially with the thing of the butterfly. It just took a moment for me to just pause and really just take time to not just rush through things, but really think about what it is that I wanted to say. So those ellipses mean for me, just a moment to just think, take things in, because that's what I did that morning when I was just walking and gathering little ideas of what was going on. I took a moment with a clear mind to just take in what was around. And as I began to take in what was around me, I started to form or kind of get an idea of what's the visual I wanted to give my readers as they read it? What pain was I creating as I was writing? So that's what all that meant when you put it all together for that particular poem.
Cool. Very good. All right. It appears that no one has any questions or comments. So that's okay. And so now I'm going to move to some questions for our next poet, Kiana, who, if anybody's watching and knows Kiana, you know that she is she's my boo thing. All right. So let's see, Kiana, let's start with you and say, and my question is, what is your process for writing poetry? What are you thinking when you write? Do you, what are your methods?
So because I literally just write, and when my original method was, my thoughts would come with each line. Like I didn't really have a method. And but because I thought that poems had to rhyme, that was the intention behind, like every time I wrote a line, it was authentic in that moment, but I still had to think like, well, how am I going to make this rhyme with the previous one? And honestly, it actually came pretty easy. But you know, after learning that poetry doesn't have to necessarily rhyme, I kind of still stuck with the whole thing of just letting my thoughts flow, because now I didn't have to think about, is it going to rhyme with the previous, or you know, with the previous line or previous stanza. But now I think that because I'm exploring writing now, I'm definitely not as confident as maybe I was, because I was so sure of what poetry was before. And so now that I'm not, everything is new. So I'm open, you know, when I'm learning about the different types of poems. And so now I'm considering all of those things when I'm writing. Sometimes I just say, forget it, I'll just write what comes to me. And then other times when I'm trying to make it fit a structure, you know, I just have that in the back of my mind.
Yeah, I agree with you. And so I love what you said about, you know, sometimes you feel like you just want to write what comes to you, and you know, and that, I think that's perfectly fine, because you know, while poetry has form, you know, free versing or free writing in itself is a form, but it's less restrictive, and so that gives, you know, everyone the opportunity to just write how they feel, write how they wish, and it, you know, it doesn't require any extra thinking on top of the thinking that you're already doing to try to construct the poem. And so one of the things that I have done, as you mentioned, is, you know, give writing prompts occasionally, there will be some coming tonight, so be on the lookout. Writing prompts to help, you know, stimulate growth in writing. And so, you know, you don't necessarily have to write a pantoum, you don't have to write a villanelle, you don't have to write a sonnet. You can just write whatever you want. You don't even have to break your lines apart. You could just write prose, because prose is still a poem. It just doesn't have any, you know, structured metrics. You know, you don't have to break your poems in a certain way. Poems also don't have to rhyme. You don't have to rhyme. You can also make a list, and the list is a poem. If you're writing a letter to a family member who has passed on, and you're trying to let go of some of those memories, like, or not let go of the memories, but trying to release your emotions, that's a poem in itself. It has a name. It's called an elegy. And so the things that we write don't necessarily have to be written in a certain way in order for it to be poetry, because to some degree, everything that we write or everything that we experience, everything that we write contributes to the world of poetry. We just don't realize it most times. So, oh, good. Now, the poem, remind me of the name of the poem that you read about the glass ceiling. What was the name of that poem?
It was Broken Goals.
Broken Goals. So tell me, what was your motivation behind that?
So I wrote a book called Broken Ruby, and when you and Broken Ruby was a book about like a healing process. And when you hear the words Broken Ruby, you think of something negative, like something's broken, something's damaged. And but when you read the book and you understand that I'm following the process of what it takes for like what it takes for a ruby to have the deepest color that it has, which is the deeper the color, the more valuable the stone is. And so in that description, being broken is actually a good thing. Being broken is where the value comes. And so I took that concept and was just thinking about, when you hear broken goals, that sounds like something negative, but I was writing it from that same standpoint of broken being. Like, that's where the value is, that's where the breakthrough is. And so broken goals, like, there are things that you want, like things that you want to break, like generational curses, glass ceilings, like all of these things that that maybe constrict us. Like, your goal is to break it, but to hear the words broken goals doesn't sound like it's something positive, but it is. And so that's where the whole thought process behind that poem, and also the name of the poem, is kind of like to get people thinking.
Good. And so there were a couple lines that you mentioned about specifically the glass ceiling. How does that relate to the speaker, or how does that relate to you as a writer, a woman in architecture? How does that relate?
Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be me in architecture, but well, I can speak to that. So Black women only account for 0.2% in the nation of architects, and so that statistic will kind of make you feel like, oh my gosh, it's probably going to be hard for me to get past a certain point. And then also, when I was in undergrad, I had a professor tell me that being Black and being a woman was like two negative strikes against me. And so he was like, you're gonna he said, it's going to be really hard for you to be successful. I had another professor. So that professor told me that my first year of architecture school. And then on the third year of architecture school, which is kind of like right down the middle of the program, I had a professor write to me and tell me that I wasn't going to be successful in architecture and that I should consider changing my major. And so, but me, the type of person I am, I took that as motivation. Like, I held on to those words because I had something to prove. I had something to move forward. So instead of letting it defeat me, it pushed me, it fueled me. And so that glass ceiling that I'm talking about is the one that my first year professor put above me. It's the one that the third year professor put above me. It's the one that society puts above me when they say what the statistics are of Black women in architecture. It's not limited to architecture. There are plenty of professions where women, and specifically Black women, have to struggle for their place. And so, the glass ceiling is set by everybody else because they haven't seen it done before.
Absolutely. And so I want you to know that you are the best one to do the job all the time. Well, cool. Uh, I I think, let's see. I don't see any other comments. Let's see. Nah, I think this has been great. I think we're all set. So uh, wherever you are, let's give a big old some snaps to our poets on today who read. Yeah, there you go. Again, this experience, like this 4-week experience, was really dope. We had the chance to uh, engage with people, you know, in different parts of the country. You know, we got Hillary, who's from Mississippi. Shout out to the home team. Uh, and then we have Tamara, who's also from Colorado. And then we have Kiana, who's originally from East St. Louis. Um, and so, and some of our other participants who were unable to join us, unfortunately, they were from other parts of the world. So, like, we had a participant in China, and so that was really cool to see that there are many people who are interested in the world of poetry and want to see what it's all about. And so, if you found anything great about this poetry reading, please, please, please feel free to sign up for our next workshop. It's going to start on July the 6th. You can sign up at the kneelandcenter.org, where you will find our workshop sign up. Also, if you have poetry that you want to be shown to the world in a professional setting, you can submit your poems to the Elevation Review at theelevationreview.submittable.com. I will also put that in the chat box so that you have the opportunity to see it. And of course, again, just remembering that the theme is "The Injustice Will Return Home One Day" is a theme for our August issue. Okay. So please feel free, if you have poems, or if you have poems that you want to be considered for any of our other issues that are coming out within, over the course of the next year, you can submit those as well. Well, I think that that concludes all of the poetry reading for this evening. Again, thanks to the board of directors for the Kneeland Center for Poetry. Thanks to all of the supporters and donors that we have on our behalf. To all of the subscribers, the listeners, the followers, those who participate in the occasional prompts that are posted. Your words are appreciated and they're heard, felt, and just keep on spreading the word. Like there are healing properties in poetry. There are liberating properties in poetry. And so we want to inspire all of those things for not just people in the Indianapolis metropolitan area, not just those in Mississippi, not just those in Colorado, but those all over the country and all over the globe. So please check us out on the kneelandcenter.org, where you will be able to find all of our information, what we're going to be up to over the course of the next few years. Check out our strategic plan, which goes into detail about our 5-year plan and what we have planned for the surrounding communities locally, regionally, nationally, and globally. All right. Yeah, so that's it. All right. Well, Kiana, Hillary, you guys have anything else?
Okay. I just want to say again, thank you for the opportunity. This was a big step for me. And then too, also thank you for challenging me. Just change, give my mind open to a new perspective, especially with writing. Um, like they tell anyone, criticism is, as long as it's constructive and it's conducive to what you're doing, it's always welcome. There's always improvement. We're always learning. Please never think you ever know anything, because there's always someone that can teach you something different. Um, Altogether, this workshop has been really a life-changing experience for me. It's given me the confidence to do what I love to do, which is writing. Writing is my passion. That's my first love. So I just thank you again, Thomas, for just giving me this opportunity and seeing something in my writing. And helping me improve where I need improvement at. I thank you for it. Oh, and thanks, Kiana, for just being that smiling face. Being the smiling face and just giving the great advice and seeing, in between the lines that it's written. Thank you.
Thank you, Hillary. So I wanted to say, writings first started for me as therapy, and I think the beautiful thing in it is that poetry is just another form of writing that can help you get your thoughts out. So I appreciate everything that you're doing, Thomas, because there are people like me that are just writing their thoughts just so that they can, as a form of mental health. And now, this type of organization can help them, structure through that and help them help them better communicate what they're thinking, which ultimately will help other people. Because one of the things that you find is everything that you're going through is somebody else is going through the same thing, and you can help each other by writing and reading this type of literature. So keep going. I'm really proud of you, and I think you've really put in a whole lot of work, and you might not feel like you've accomplished a lot, but it's just been amazing to watch you do what you're doing with this, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here.
I feel like I need to step out of character now and say, thanks, babe. All right. Well, thank you guys for watching. We're actually about 5 minutes early, but hey, it's been good. The poetry was good. The questions were good. The feedback that we got on the other side was good, and so I thank you all for watching, listening, following, subscribing, and we'll see you guys soon at our workshop that starts on July the 6th. Yeah. Okay. All right. Also, just another surprise little thing. Surprise. We have our first 2 Kneeland Fellows. And so what would have initially started as a retreat is starting out in our workshops. And so one of the things that we're going to be doing moving forward is using our fellows as a means of building our community of poets. And so as we have more workshops, our fellows will have the opportunity to also engage with those workshop participants to help make for a much more rich experience. So we've got Hillary and Tamara, who is unfortunately not with us today. We missed her. She definitely has a great voice and contributes a lot to this workshop. But congratulations to the both of you. And so we'll have a lot more opportunities coming for you guys in the near future. Don't cry, Hillary.
Congratulations, Hillary. And congratulations to Tamara as well.
Oh, God, thank you. Like I said.
That is a wrap, cut and print. Thanks for watching, guys, and have a great Thursday night.
All right, good evening.
All right, bye.